Campbell McLaren, one of the most influential people in mixed martial arts. How are you, sir? Thank you for joining us.
Very well. Turbulent times, interesting times. But happily, I can tell you I'm doing very well, and Combate Global is doing exceptionally well.
Definitely. And you're known as one of the creators of Ultimate Fighting Championship. Now you're leading the Hispanic focused sports franchise, Combate Global, as you mentioned. I don't want to hold you too long, but I do want to dive in on something that's very important that just happened. The election for our new president. Donald Trump was just elected as president, taking back the White House. Now, you told me, Campbell, that MMA won the election. What do you mean by that?
Well, remember, I am a promoter, so I'm allowed a certain amount of hyperbole. I'll tell you what is interesting, Eric, is 30 years. In 30 years, the sport has gone from being sort of an outcast sport. John McCain, Senator McCain, a Republican, was really trying to get it banned. And now, fast forward, I don't know, 30 years, not so fast. It took a while to get here, but 30 years. And I think the UFC, Dana White, and certainly Joe Rogan played an enormous part in Donald Trump's popularity, particularly in reaching young men. And and I think he acknowledges that, and I think it's fairly obvious. I think that's an amazing thing to think about, right? In 30 years, it's gone from mainstream to political power. But I think, some people say it's the alpha male thing or the sort of trend. But I'll tell you, I don't think that's right, because the UFC, from its inception, when I started it, some 31 years ago, it was about heroes. It was about the David versus Goliath. And I think what President Trump did an amazing job of is positioning himself as the underdog. And Americans love to root for the underdog, right? We want, we want the David to beat the Goliath. And I think the fight business has always delivered us up heroes, right? And I think, think of Muhammad Ali. He went on to be a champion of not just boxing, but the world. He was a freedom fighter. He represented everyone that was taking a beating. And I think he was a great, great hero and a great spokesperson for people that didn't have a spokesperson, right? And I think that's what fighting does. And I think MMA has eclipsed boxing in creating heroes. And I think it is the sport of heroes. And I think Donald Trump, President Trump's embrace of that really did help. But I'll tell you, there's something that's got to be pointed out in his victory. And 15% of the eligible voters in the U.S. are Hispanic. And he grew his Hispanic voters and supporters by tremendous amounts. And I don't think anyone expected that. But I think Hispanic folks are not one big group. And I think they have the same problems as everybody else, right? The cost of eggs. That was a big problem for people. So I think Donald Trump tapped into that. And I think by paying attention to the group, and someone said, he might have insulted them or talking about things that they didn't think were going to be appealing to his Hispanic listeners. The Hispanic demo in this country has tremendous economic power, obviously tremendous political power. Combate has built an entirely new audience for MMA through its Hispanic audience. 91% don't watch the UFC. So I have this incredible power. Donald Trump tapped into it. Advertisers, marketers, politicians, sports league. If you overlook the Hispanic folks, I think you're doomed. So did MMA elect the president? Oh my God, I don't know if I want to go down in history saying that. But I do think this David versus Goliath hero thing did play a big part in it, and certainly Rogan can reach a lot of young males. The UFC certainly reaches young male fans. But honestly, if I'm going to go down in history, and people pay attention to what you cover, Eric, I want to say the Hispanic demo was what got him elected rather than them. But I do like your concept. I do like it very much.
No doubt, for sure. MMA being intertwined, right, and just the new president coming in. So definitely find that interesting. You tweeted that liberals and the DNC do not like MMA. Is that just a hunch, or how much data have you seen to support that assertion?
It's more than a hunch. Can you imagine, Kamala Harris coming to the UFC? I mean, I don't think so. I don't want to name names. Really don't. And Mike, who serves as our Mike Aframowitz, the legendary Afro Mike, serves as my comms head, and a number of people said, don't name names if you're talking about this. But I did approach three very, very senior people at the DNC, and I pointed out their message wasn't resonating. And the response I got from three very high placed people was, we like your audience, we don't like your sport.
Hmm. Yeah. No, totally gotcha for sure.
You know, don't tell me what to like, amigos. I like what.
Yeah. No, no, totally. And kind of going back to what you mentioned before, 'cause someone was telling me that Trump represents that alpha male movement, right? Which arguably is a part of the MMA fan DNA. But you don't quite believe that to be true. Is that right, Campbell?
Well, let me clarify. The alpha male thing, by the way, has been debunked. The sociologist scientist who created the concept went back and said my research really I was not as really as clear as I thought it was. But go back to the first UFC. Again, I think it's more David and Goliath. Hoist Gracie got everyone's attention, and now, his brother Horian did say in an interview, men are for fighting, women are for babies. But I think that's more primal,
Right.
right? In the 90s, there was this movement, men were going in the woods and beating a drum and getting in touch with their masculinity. Yeah, that's weird, by the way. But, I think it's not so much as some of the folks that I think are very toxic. I think it's more simple than that. I think people want a hero. They want to root for somebody. And
Mhm.
we all like tough guys. And it has been the boxing champion, whether it was Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson or whoever, was the toughest guy in the world. Now we know the toughest guys in the world are MMA fighters,
Mhm.
right? And we root for them because we want a hero. The alpha male thing, honestly, it's the sociologist that created the concept. It's been debunked. In some situations, Eric, you're going to be alpha. In some situations, I'm going to be alpha, and sometimes we're not. And
Mhm.
sometimes we want to work with a group, and sometimes we want to be the number two guy, and sometimes we want to take over. It really doesn't work that. Humans are a little more complex than that. But I think we're simple in the way that we all want a hero. Trump made himself the hero. Hoist Gracie made himself the hero. La Loba is a hero to the women who want to feel empowered and realize if a woman can be a fighter, she can be anything. And, I think it's about, I think we're all kind of simple creatures. I think it's hero worship. I don't buy this alpha male stuff.
No, definitely. And you definitely saw that UFC CEO Dana White was, big part of that victory speech, right? Going pretty full MAGA as part of that. And, in other sports leagues, right, Campbell, owners and operators are pretty quiet about their political allegiances as to avoid alienating fans and consumers. Why do you think it works for the UFC?
Um, well, there's kind of an economic or structural issue to that. If you look at the NFL has a group of team owners, right? And they might represent, a spectrum of political viewpoints, probably most conservative, right? Because most very wealthy business people tend to be conservative in their approach. It's better for business. But, whether it's the NFL or MLB or whoever, you got a lot of owners. UFC's kind of, it's Ari Emanuel, who was Donald Trump's agent back in the day, and Dana. And so Dana doesn't have to check with anyone on what he thinks. And I will also say this. I did a show with Donald Trump years ago, and then Dana, has followed up with a lot of shows in the Trump casinos. They've been friends for a while. That is not
Yeah.
a matter of friendship. They do know each other. And
Mhm.
I believe Dana thinks Donald helped him when he needed a help, and so is happy to return the favor.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, sports. Well, look, keep politics out of sports unless you believe my politics. That's a little bit of that.
Right.
I think Colin Kaepernick may be the best example of that. But look, Dana and Donald Trump, they're both friends. They are friends. They know each other. They support each other. So it's not a fake thing. I
Yeah.
think it's win.
Great, great. Well, there you have it, folks. From the man himself.
I invited Joe Biden to come to the Combate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even get a turn down. I got no response. So
Well, he'll have some more time on his hands now. It's coming up, so maybe he will accept your invitation. There you have it, folks. The CEO of Combate Global, Campbell McLaren. Thank you, Campbell, for coming on, man.
great stuff. Thanks, Eric.